All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Well, welcome everyone to this webinar focused on how to write a competitive K12 application for the Neuro-EM Scholars program. Glad that you took the time to join us. If you can see on the panel here, we have our co-directors as well as our team from the University of Michigan helping us run the program, Lisa Harold and Megan Ramsey. And you can see here are the co-directors are listed myself, Ope Adoye, Gail D'Onofrio, and Cliff Calloway, and you're going to hear from all of them as we provide an overview and introduce the program. And then you're going to also have the opportunity, as Megan mentioned, to meet with our first round of scholars, and we're going to do some Q&A with them. And then we also have this open Q&A session for you to ask questions, which you can do, I think, electronically during the webinar here, and Megan will try to answer some of those questions in real time. And if we have time at the end, we can address some broader questions that might be important for everyone to hear. So with that, I think we have a few. We can go back to the slides, I think.
I apologize. My it's storming where I'm at, and my internet connection is not quite stable. Lisa, do you mind sharing just for stability purposes?
Yes, let me. Sure.
So the first thing we just want to touch on is an overview of the goals and objectives of the program, and really it is to build a community of scholars within the specialty of emergency medicine that can address important questions in neurologic emergencies, and being part of the program, what we're trying to achieve is for you to advance your career in an accelerated way. Facilitate your ability to progress to independent funding in this line of research, and also build a community within emergency medicine of like-minded scientists that can support each other as we try to advance the field in this area and in emergency medicine research even more broadly. So the program provides 3 years of funding. 75% effort is expected to focus on research, and then there's some funds for your research project as well. You even though it's a national program, you stay at your own institution for that time, have your primary mentor at your own institution, and then you will have some supportive mentorship and collaborators through the program itself with our National Advisory Council. And even as our cohort of trainees grows, that peer-to-peer mentoring will be an important component of the program. We have an annual retreat where the scholar applicants come to get selected, but also the funded scholars will come to report out on their research and help, again, develop ongoing collaborations and mentorship through that program as well. The metrics for the program from the NIH perspective is the trainees going on to get independent funding, either at an independent K award or an R level funding, would be the sort of the metric of success that we will be judged by. So those are really what our objectives are. I think the next slide would be, go to the next slide, would be really just to give you an overview of the focus, because it's not all of emergency medicine. We're funded by mainly the National Institute of Neurologic Disorders and Stroke, but we also have funding from contingent funding on National Institute of Aging and National Institute of Drug Abuse. So the list of the research topics here, the main research topics are ischemic stroke, traumatic brain injury, cardiac arrest, status epilepticus, subarachnoid hemorrhage, spinal cord injury, neurodegenerative diseases as they relate to presentations to the emergency department, and then pain and addiction. And in terms of the National Institute of Aging, sort of the more things relevant to specific issues related to neurologic emergencies in the elderly is important as well. This is the whole spectrum involves the whole spectrum of translation. So it could be basic science, very much molecular mechanisms research, if that's where your interests are, clinical research, or health services research as well. So we try to cover the entire spectrum of translation in these areas of research, and no age limit on the patient population to be studied. So pediatrics through geriatrics are all in scope. So next slide, and I think I'll hand it off to Ope.
Yes. Thanks, Bob. And hi, everyone. I'm Okwe, and I'm one of the co-directors. It's good to see you all in the list anyway. So a brief overview of the K12, and Bob touched on some of this already, but it provides up to 3 years of funding. There's 75% dedicated research time required, and the awardees provided $40,000 for research funding per year. The main purpose, by far, our primary measure of success is making sure that people who go through the program secure either a career development award, an NIH career development award, or an independent R01 by the end of year 3 of being a part of the K12 program. Our deadlines for this year is we're requiring a letter of interest. There's a form on the website that we ask that everybody submit by September 3rd. A draft Ames page is due along with the letter of interest. The full K12 application is due October 1, and so there's no invitation for that. Everybody's invited to apply with the full K12 application. For the pipeline program, which typically refers to senior residents, PGY2 or higher, or through fellows, but who are not in their first faculty position yet. So the pipeline program includes anyone still in training and not in faculty position from PGY2 and up. And so that form is due September 15th if you're not ready to apply for the K12. And then people who are invited to participate in the pipeline program, as well as people, as well as the K12 applicants, will join the co-directors. We have a national advisory council and a bunch of experts nationally in the area of focus. And we have a retreat plan for December 2 through 5 in Ann Arbor. Next slide. So some specifics that we can't say enough about, but we'll try and do in one slide. This is basically the K12 in a nutshell. This is your application. This is also the format that the NIH uses. And so it's a twofold experience in that way. There's a one-page specific aims, and there's a research strategy that is 12 pages total. Approximately 8 pages is expected to be the research strategy or the science portion of your application. And approximately 4 pages is expected to be your career development plan, which is obviously the main focus of the K12 with good science. So your science has to be good, but then the main focus is actually career development. And there's no page limit on the references. The one thing I will say about mentor statements and institutional commitments, I had an applicant from my institution the last go around, and they did not share the application with me or anybody else beforehand. And it was pretty clear that they didn't share it with their mentors also, because when they then sent it to me after the review process, the first thing I did was just pull it up, and mentors' names were spelled wrong. The same person's name was spelled wrong in 2 or 3, which means their mentor clearly didn't read it. And so the mentor statements and the letter of institutional commitments, these are really key elements. You have to use your mentors. The purpose of mentorship is for them to actually provide the insights. So those are really key elements of the application and shows support for the candidate that influences the review process. And then the candidate and mentor bio sketches, again, things that people actually have to read, and you can't just make it up for people. You have to give them enough time to be able to read it. And so that part falls on you as a prospective mentee. So allow your mentor enough lead time to actually, read the 1 page to 5 pager, depending on what the details are. And then no limits on the budget justification. And I think Cliff is next, but I can't remember.
Yeah, thanks, Okwe. It's my job to tell you about how these get reviewed. And we try to do this in a fashion that's very similar to an NIH review. We form a study section from our National Advisory Committee. So all of the faculty that are listed for the K12 are the reviewers. And we have set out the review criteria modeled very closely on what a K23 or another K grant might be reviewed at NIH. And they're listed here. It's the things that you would consider. And the thing you should look at with this bullet list is that, you know, the research is one bullet out of 6, and that the others are all about you. So it's very much a career development grant. We're looking, and the reviewers are looking to see if the application conveys that you are going to continue in research and that you're on a trajectory likely to result in future NIH funding. We're looking to see if it's going to provide you training that will benefit you, and if your training plan is actually consistent with what you think you need. Are your mentors able to actually provide you with that guidance? And then the department chair and mentor letters, you know, should support that. So it's really a package about a training grant, and you should never forget that K grants are training grants. So these are the ones. This is the only grant you'll ever have that's all about you. After this, all the project grants are about the project. The project is important, but it needs to be something that's supporting your career advancement. You know, so the project is a tool for you to sharpen your own skills and gain new skills, and then set you up to do larger grants later. So it's not that the research is not important, but we're looking at it in the context of how it helps your career. Let's do the next slide. We use the same metric as the NIH scale, 1 through 9 for the various elements. So reviewers are going to look and see if there are many strengths or weaknesses. If there are a lot of strengths and only 1 or so weaknesses, then the scores will be in the 1 to 3 range. Lower scores better. If you start to have lots of weaknesses or major weaknesses, then you'll get a lower score. We rate all of the criteria on this kind of scale, and Megan leaves me a note to remind you that we'll put those in a Google Doc, and as you make an application, all of our review criteria are transparent, so you know as you write an application what the reviewers are instructed to grade it based on. Let's go ahead to the next, and I think it's Gail.
Hi, I'm Gail D'Onofrio from Yale University, and I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about writing tips for your K and things you should and shouldn't do. And the most important thing is to make sure that you show your strength as the candidate, that your mentors then are chosen appropriately, and that your research is, we'll talk about in relation to what the goals are of the K12 and your institution. And it is important that that mentoring team be very engaged. And so it's not just a quick little note from them, but how they're really going to work with you for your project and for your career development as well, because both of those things are important, that you integrate those into your objectives. It's not just the research, it's not just the career development, it's all of it together. And then most importantly, about how this trajectory is going to happen to make you a scientifically independent investigator at some point. So how this K fits into your life goals and what your trajectory is going to be like. On the next slide, please. And some major issues to avoid, as you've heard already from some people, is making sure that everybody has reviewed, and particularly all your mentors have reviewed your application, are in agreement to it, and that it is the best foot forward as you can do, and that it's very vigorous, that all of your statistical design and approaches are all lined up, that there is a clear rationale for why you want to do that study. It's not too overly ambitious. You're going to be able to accomplish it during that period of time that you have, the 3 years, and that it definitely has to be related to the what the goals are of the institutes who are funding us. And so that career development has to have a clear neuro relevance, regardless of which institute is going to fund that. And again, you can't do this at the last minute. So make sure that everything that you're developing has been in really congruent with what your mentors think and your chair thinks, because they have to write the letters for you. So be sure that it's all done with some coherence. And I think that's about it. And I'm not sure who Lisa I'm sending this on to.
So next we're going to give you a chance to hear not from sort of the, look, that was all from sort of the people running the program, but hear now from the people that were successfully participated in the program and are getting ready to start their training in the first round of scholars. So we thought it would be helpful for each one of them to give you a little bit of their perspective about the application process. And I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves when they go. But the two questions, if you go to the next one, the two questions we're going to have each one of them talk about is what was the most challenging part of preparing the K-12 application, and then what advice do they have for the applicants, or what would they do differently or wish they knew then they know now. So if we can maybe just take down the slides and let them, let's see, their faces, and you guys can volunteer whoever wants to go first.
I'm
All right.
so the
Yeah, and introduce yourself and where you're from, and then
Sure.
try to answer whatever questions you want to answer or anything else you want to say.
Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Ade Akatuaman. I'm at Emory University, and to answer the question about the most challenging aspect of the application, I think the approach section can be really challenging, because I think it's tempting to start with the specific aims and the significance and writing kind of your career development plan. But it wasn't until I got to the approach that I realized that that's really where everything comes together, because it requires you to think about what your mentors will help support you with. And a lot of times you're trying to now say you want to use approaches that you haven't done before. So you really do need the input from your mentors. And that then really does impact your career development plan. So I found that I had written like kind of everything else of the application because the approach really intimidated me. And then when it came time to write that, I then got help from my mentors, thankfully, but then had to go back and revise everything else to make it fit. So I think in the slides, everyone talked a lot about really including your mentors and getting support from your mentors. And I think that's the area where you need the most help. And so I would honestly, in addition to the specific aims page being the most important, start with the approach. And if I had to do one thing differently, I think I would have pulled my mentors in as it relates to the approach a bit sooner, because then I would have saved a lot of drafts and a lot of time.
There you go. Great advice. Great advice. Thanks. Who wants to go next?
Hey, I can go next. I'm Jonathan. I'm at the University of Pittsburgh. And let's see, for the hardest thing, definitely agree with Ade that the approach was really, really tough. For me, actually, the hardest thing was, this is probably commonly answered, but the specific aims, I think I probably went through 50 plus iterations of different aims pages. And every time I showed it to somebody else, somebody had their excellent input, and then I showed it to the next person and they had their excellent input. And the process just sort of went on. So that was itself really, really, really tough. It's very useful to fall back on sort of your mentors, and then also really, really smart people who weren't really familiar with my research. I think they also helped a lot, because if my aims page made sense to them and told a story and were coherent for them, I think I could share it with a broader audience and they'd also still understand my story. Whereas sometimes your immediate mentorship group, team, colleagues are really invested in what you do and might lose sight of the forest as well. To elaborate on the hardest a little bit, clearly I had a lot of difficulty with this. I actually think, we all probably going through this process have one or two really, really close mentors who you work closely with, and you've known for a number of years. But to really establish a broad and heterogeneous mentorship team to make you a full, well-rounded researcher, I thought that was really hard too, like finding out who to reach out to, how to just sort of bring up with essentially strangers, like, hey, I want you to help me on this journey I'm going to go on for the next couple of years, and then also maybe for the rest of my life. It's sort of an awkward conversation to have. But again, falling back on your mentors, I think that'll be a theme for this discussion, was really, really helpful there. And then as for what advice, I'll keep this part really, really simple. We all spend a lot of time writing these proposals, and sometimes they can be really daunting when you're sitting in front of a blank page. So Cliff told me at the start of this, bare minimum 5 lines a day. It turns out it's not that many words. And as you can get 5 lines a day out, before you know it, you'll have many pages of text.
Great. More good advice. So you guys are gaining wisdom early in the process. You haven't even started your funding period and you're giving all this wise and sage advice.
I can go next. I'm Regina Royan. I'm at the University of Michigan. For me, the most challenging part was probably like time management. I ended up writing some of it while I was on maternity leave because I didn't want to miss this opportunity. But I think like pacing yourself on different sections to like get them done, by certain times is helpful. And I totally echo what Jonathan said. Don't get stuck in the weeds on your specific aims. You feel like that's where you should start to get your ideas out, and that's great, but don't ruminate on them. Just plow through and get words on the page for the other sections, because you can agonize over the words in your specific aims ad nauseum, like he was saying, 50 versions. I probably had similar, but it can really stymie you in the beginning. So I encourage you to just like plow through, get words on a page, and then revise the whole thing as you go. Other advice I would have for applicants are don't be afraid to look outside the specialty of emergency medicine for mentorship, especially with this specific funding opportunity. I've gotten such phenomenal mentorship and engagement and sponsorship from neurologists, from neurocritical care physicians who are really enthusiastic about working with emergency medicine physicians that are interested in what they're interested in. And so that might not be like a natural thing that you think about doing, but I think there's like some really great allies and really awesome scientist mentors that are out there that are really excited about cultivating emergency medicine research topics. So.
All right, great. Thank you for that. And Madeline?
Hi, I'm Madeline. I'm up in Maine at Maine Medical Center. And I guess kind of piggybacking off of what everyone has already said, I think for me, the hardest part was developing a really good mentoring team. Up where I am, there's a little bit less emergency medicine researchers. And so I was really had to reach for pretty quickly outside of the specialty, which I think only helped kind of strengthen my proposal. I think another unexpected challenge I had was I'm a second year faculty already, so this is my last opportunity to apply for the grant. So I wanted it so badly because I knew there was no redos if I didn't get it this time, because I would have aged out of the program in another year. And so I think it was the first time I was like just really, really worried and anxious about not doing, writing a good enough proposal to get considered. And so I think I had to work really hard with my institution to get permission to apply for the grant. Actually, I think as I've been a new attending, I think there's definitely a little bit of interplay within your institution on kind of what grants you'll be applying for and what they'll approve, and kind of figuring that all out was kind of a new, unexpected thing. I think I thought you could just apply for anything and they'd approve everything you applied for. And sometimes there's a little bit of nuance in that. So that was another challenging aspect. But I think it was really grateful. This was actually my third K12 I had applied for. So I had some like draft documents, which really helped make it a little faster in that regard, that I could use some documents and kind of revise them. But I think, one thing I would say is, it never hurts to apply for grants, even if you don't think you're going to get it, because at least it builds up your repertoire of documents that you can use to spin into another grant. And so, I've had a lot of disheartening my first 3 years of applying for grants. I think I've applied for 16 grants now and gotten 2. And so I think that always felt so bad when you don't get a grant. And so then finally to get one just felt like a huge win. And all that work and all those prior grants that didn't get funded kind of felt like a nice payoff when I was successful here. So I guess my other piece of advice is just keep on applying, and maybe, eventually somebody will fund you, and then it feels that much better that you got there. So that's all I have.
Well, great. Well, thanks to all of you for sharing your experience and perspective, and I think it's really valuable for those considering applying. So Megan and Lisa, we have an opportunity for Q&A now at this point for those that are on? And are we able to bring them in to see their video, or do we have to do by written question and answer?
So we can do written question and answer. I don't think we can see people's videos, but we can allow them to talk. So if somebody has a question, I think they can raise their hand and we can unmute them.
Let's try that.
Yeah, I've also just put up, in case people have follow-up questions after this, the QR code goes to our website, and you can always email me. I help manage the program, so if there's a question that I don't know the answer to, I work with the co-directors to get you the information you need. So please feel free to reach out at any point.
Do we have any written questions in the Q&A?
Nothing right now, no.
Okay. Does anyone want to raise their hand? And I don't know, I guess you would just raise your hand on the reaction bar down at the bottom. Is that how you raise your hand? And have a question?
Lisa, can everyone chat?
Can everyone chat? Yes. So right now, if there's any questions, they have to raise their hand, and then I can allow them to talk if you'd like. I can technically allow everyone to talk. I don't know, that kind of relinquishes control over the audio, but it's up to you.
Give it a try.
All right.
Give it a try.
Okay, everyone's allowed to talk now.
Wide open.
There you go. All right. Now, all of the guests that are in attendance, you guys we're able to hear you. So if you have questions, please go ahead.
The other thing I think sometimes helps is, just in case people are reluctant to speak up first. If we have, a question or two that we can ask the group, sort of where people are in their training, how many people are, pipeline, how many people are planning to apply this year, maybe, and so on, then people could maybe enter those in the chat, and it may be a little easier than in case people are shy.
This is Chris Henderson, one of the pipeline participants. I have a question. Especially for times a day, how long did it take you to finish the application?
So Chris, your audio is a little bit garbled there. Did anyone quite understand the question? Or maybe you could type it in the chat.
I was watching the closed captioning and, just one way, let's see. Let me see if it caught it. I might be able to go back. If not though, Chris, please feel free to go ahead and unmute and re-ask your question.
Sorry, I could try again. Sorry, I had you
That's
on
much better.
Sure,
Yeah,
much
that's
better,
perfect.
yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm currently in the MICU and I'm trying to do two things at once. So my question was kind of for the scholars, when did you start on your application and roughly how long did it take, especially using like the 5 lines a day method or something similar?
Oh, cool.
Any of our scholars want to answer?
Everybody's looking at their calendar. I think one thing we can say is we didn't actually have the application open until, Megan, was it July?
I think it was July last year. Yep.
Yeah, so no one probably started before July.
Right.
I did, I can answer this. So I don't know what institution you're at, but lots of institutions have like K boot camps, and I did a K boot camp in the spring, and so I had developed like a version of my aims and a version of my career development plan, and like the beginnings of some of the stuff probably about 6 months out, and then nose to the grindstone was probably like 6 weeks of really intensive writing.
Yeah, I would just like to add that the specific aims are extremely important. Even those of us who are writing grants with full professors can take literally months to write that first page because you're really trying to say what's been done, what can I do, and how am I going to measure it. And so with your mentors, that can take a really long time. Actually, the rest of it is kind of filler in some ways. So don't be distraught about how long that takes. That's the important part. Get started early on that.
Yeah, and I think to add to what Gail just said and what Ade said earlier, I think if you really nail down the specific aims, Ade, for the most part, you can flesh out the approach to go along with it. And so I think you can pull that off if you really nail down the specific aims.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is there's a reason we're having this seminar when we're having it. So we're trying to encourage everyone to start as early as possible because other things come along and interrupt your process. And the bottom line is the sooner you can get started, the better your application will be. There'll be number of times in the process where you need to change course or you need to revise what you're going to do, and to be able to integrate. You heard so much about how valuable it was to get input from as many people as possible, especially people outside the specialty or outside your area of expertise, to be able to integrate that advice and find solutions to the challenges that they bring forward to what you're proposing often takes time. You may need to engage potential collaborators that you never even thought of in order to really optimize your training and your proposal, and all of that can take time. And oftentimes it's challenging to get meetings with people over the summer as well. So you can never start too early, I guess would be my advice.
There's also no wasted effort. So,
Yeah.
the structure of this is the same structure as if you were applying for a K23 or a K08, and working towards this deadline, if you are funded, great, and then it's a first draft of a K23 or an independent funding, and hopefully it resembles other K12s if you're eligible for other K12s. So, once you develop a career development plan, then you can embellish it and improve it for the next application and the next application.
And I think most of us will be at SAM, so that's another opportunity for you to seek us out during that time if you want some other individual advice.
If I may add something, I think it's okay to add this. This is in response to Jonathan's comment earlier about, there are all these incredibly smart people that you'll have the opportunity to work with, then they'll give you conflicting advice. Right. And so I think one element of this that again is underutilized by the mentee, it is the onus is on you to figure out how to get those calendars to align. So get the calendars to align so that these two remarkably smart people, if one of them heard the other's perspective, they may actually change and get you clarity. Whereas if you get, some guidance from Dr. Numa and another guidance from Dr. D'Onofrio, and then you're like, which one do I pick? You shouldn't pick. You should put the two of them together and let them duke it out.
Good.
Good. That's good advice. All right. Any other questions or any other advice or comments from our scholars? You guys had a lot of great things to say, and I'm sure you have more good things to say to encourage our potential applicants.
Chris, I may have lost sight of what your original question was, and I don't know why I was Googling this, but according to Purdue University, a slideshow that they have, the average K award, the writer spends somewhere between 200 to 300 hours putting it together. So if that's any context, I don't know if that's true, but it's on a PowerPoint on Google, so it seems about right.
It sounds right.
There are no other questions in the Q&A, just as an update.
I can ask a question that I asked last year, and it may be clarifying for some people who are looking to write again this year. It seemed like there was a lot of emphasis on how this is a training award meant to focus on career development and learning career skills, and that should be a significant, if not the most significant part of our proposals. It's then odd to me to see on that K award proposal breakdown slide, you would approximate 8 pages to be dedicated to the research strategy and approximate 4 pages to be dedicated to the career development plan. I think mine ended up being closer to 6 and 6. I actually think it was 6 and 6. And I remember bringing this up last year, and you guys, as sort of the panelists, told me that that was absolutely okay. So in case anybody else is wondering that.
Mine was 2. Closer to 6 and 6.
Yeah, no, I think though that's why they're listed as sort of approximations. Part of this is to help you practice for individual K applications. And part of it just is sometimes it depends on the kind of research that you're doing, how much text is required to really explain it. And I guess the one overlap there I would emphasize is that the research strategy really, a big piece of the research strategy evaluation is, will this be a career launching research strategy in terms of are the results likely to be experiments is likely to generate results that you will be able to publish? Will those results potentially be preliminary data for an individual R grant or subsequent K grant? So really understanding, a big piece of the way the research strategy is evaluated is how well it will set you up for the next stage of your career. So it is kind of evaluated through the career development perspective as well. All right. Any other questions from the participants joining?
The other thing you could do is just ask some people at your institution who have put K awards in to kind of look at their applications. It will give you some ideas of how they flesh out the the two sections and the, your development. And it's not some simple little language. It's much, much more precise. And so if you get a few examples of them that have been successful, I think you'll be easier to put your application together.
Yeah, and actually building on that advice is that it may not necessarily need to be people, some medical schools, well, if you go to the Office of Research or the Medical School Office of Research, they will ask successful candidates to offer their applications to give out to other faculty members to see. So you could contact your Office of Research and say, are there any successful K applications that you have on file that are been volunteered to share that you could look at? And that could be very helpful too, because they all will have a little bit different style, and some may resonate with what you're trying to do more than others. All right, any last words of wisdom from our scholars?
If you're on the fence, definitely do this. It's an amazing program. The retreat is so valuable and so much fun.
All right. Any last words of wisdom from the co-directors?
Just feel free to reach out to us and check us out at SAM.
Yeah, tell your friends and colleagues.
Yeah, and I would just finish with, I'm really glad that you joined the webinar. It's great to see interest in the program. I would also encourage you, if you have any questions that weren't answered here today, reach out to Megan. She's an incredible resource in terms of supporting the program. And really our goal is to help you apply and help you apply successfully. So similar to what you would do when you're applying directly to NIH and reaching out to the program officer, I encourage you all to all of you, regardless of, even if you don't have questions, to reach out to Megan and just give her a heads up that you're interested in applying. You may not have any questions right now, but you wanted to let her know, and she can, always make sure that you're aware of any updates or changes that occur during the process as well. I guess the one thing we didn't touch on is the making sure as you early on in your stage that what your aims are in your research trajectory is aligned with the missions of NINDS or NIA or NIDA. So, and if you have any questions about that, that's again, you can reach out to Megan and sort of, if you have a draft specific aims or just even a concept of what you're trying to do, she can give you some guidance on that. Or she can refer it to one of the co-directors and we can work with you. All right. Well, I guess if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and give you back 12 minutes of time. And again, this is recorded. We posted it on our website if you want to go back and review any of the discussion, questions, or advice that came forward.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye now.